Another day of podcasting, another day where Dan's kids don't bother to sleep through the night. I am slowly dying, but at least we've got fantasy basketball to occupy our brains while our bodies wither up. Dan Besbris over on Twitter. If you want to give me a follow over there, please, friends, before you do anything else, stop the video or let it keep going in the background. Hit that like button on YouTube. That's the first thing. If you're enjoying what we've done here, also subscribe. Why don't you? Please, por favor. And we can dive in. 51 is where we pick up today in our deep dive, really, at this point of the entire Yahoo first rank board. We're not going to redo this show, this type of show where we go 10 at a time when Yahoo redoes the board, because you guys will have already heard my thoughts on most of the players. At that point, we'll be talking about the changes in the Yahoo boards. That's why we're going through very slowly the first time, and then future times we can move at a slightly better clip. As far as what we're finding as we move through the names, I think there's been quite a lot. It's been a lot of fun. We still have 5 more team previews to do, the Atlantic Division, and we'll get to those when we do. 51 through 60 on the board. Jimmy Butler III starts this run today. Then Brandon Miller, Michael Porter Jr., Walker Kessler at 54. Jarrett Allen is number 55, the namesake of the Jarrett Allen corridor. Miles Bridges at 56. Darius Garland, he of probably hurt to start the year fame, at 57. Jaylen Duren at 58. Austin Reaves at 59. And DeMar DeRozan at number 60. Let's begin with, this looks different. What happened here? Did Yahoo change the way all their pages look? They sure as hell did. All right, well, let's figure this out while we go. Sigh. All right, here's the Jimmy Butler page. His headshot is much smaller. His summary is much larger. Is this zoomed in the right amount? Yeah, it's zoomed in. Well, this is goofy. There's like the last few games game log. There's the career averages. All right, well, we'll figure this out as we go. Jimmy Butler. You know him as the guy who pouted his way out of Miami last year. You may also know him as the guy who finished the season looking very, very good with the Golden State Warriors. Over the final month of this last just completed season, Butler averaged 19, 5.5, and 6 with 2 steals, a 3-ball on 49-86 splits. Of course, the free throws were at high volume. His time with the Warriors in general was extremely productive. The only note you might have on that is that he didn't shoot the ball from the field all that well in Golden State at just 47.6% in total. But again, finished the year strong. He was a second rounder down the stretch. Admittedly, that's a time when other teams aren't really playing much defense. So that kind of screws things up a little bit for the handicap. But overall, you know, the thing I have to like about Butler is that he basically played his games after he got traded to Golden State. And the way you can check on it without going through a full game log is you look at the Warriors, final 2 months, which is basically when he was there. The team had 28 games. He played 27 of them. So with Butler, there's always the is he going to beat himself into a pulp kind of thing? But I think it probably helps him to be the number 2 guy on a roster, which hasn't been the case in many seasons. He's had to be at times the everything for Miami, and he's not for the Warriors. He's Steph's sidekick, very efficient sidekick, not a floor spacer, but very good at getting to the foul line, good defensively, good orchestrator, which is something they always look for in Golden State. It's a different look, obviously, than the Klay Thompson Warriors, but he's a good fit there, and he's happy. And the happiness part, I think, is the one we can't really overlook, because games played is the big issue with Jimmy Butler and has been since Chicago in 2016. Missed 20 games in Minnesota, got traded, missed 17 games, 14, 20, 25, 18, 22. This last year, 27. Although, admittedly, he kind of took himself out of about 20 of those 27. So what are we going to get? Are we going to get a Jimmy Butler that misses 10 games and is super happy? I got to remember to turn off that damnable phone alarm when I do these podcasts. Are we going to get the Jimmy Butler that's tries to play in most basketball games, or are we going to get the one that sits out, that hurts, that plays himself into injuries and plays too much and blah, blah, blah? I think the answer probably lies somewhere in the middle. And the middle suggests that if you can get Jimmy Butler in the 5th round, which is where he's going right now, you can get a 2nd round value. I would think 3rd round kind of at the absolute worst for him at a 2-round discount. And you have to figure out how much you trust he's going to make it through the season. If you're comparing Butler to someone like Kawhi Leonard, who we looked at in our yesterday discussion, the guys between 41. Actually, Kawhi was in the 30s. He was number 34. Kevin Durant at 32. Other injury-prone Joel Embiid at 43. Kristaps Porzingis at 49. I think you probably give Butler the slight health advantage over those guys, if only because his stuff tends to be a series of nagging injuries as opposed to sort of catastrophic stuff that just keeps happening, or, with Embiid where just like the leg is exploded and Kawhi's got the tendinopathy, and so they're always going easy on him there. Like, I think Butler probably comes into the season expecting to play in back-to-backs as a point of comparison between some of these other guys we just talked about. But the other side of it is Jimmy is looking at probably like a top 20, top 25 range type of season where Kawhi is top 5. Joel Embiid could be top 3 if he actually plays, and so on and so forth. So it's a grading process. And I think the final answer on this, as we talk ourselves in loops, is if you've gone safe through the first 4 rounds, Jimmy Butler's a perfectly reasonable 5th rounder. He probably has the most per game upside of anybody that we're going to talk about on today's show. But he's also probably the least durable of anybody we're going to talk about on today's show. So grade it out. I'm okay with it. Easier play on a games cap format, obviously. Warriors, by the way, over at FanDuel, 45.5 is the season win total mark at FanDuel Sportsbook. 45.5. I think that's a pretty good number. You've got to assume the Warriors try to pick up where they left off. They finished the season strong last year, started actually relatively well, and then hit a long lull in the middle. If they're healthy, they probably go over. So that's the age-old question. Is this team actually going to stay relatively healthy? There's your Warriors number. 45.5 over at FanDuel. I would lean slightly to the over. Brandon Miller is number 52 on the Yahoo board, and Brandon Miller's coming off a season that we can give kind of an incomplete grade to. He started the year pretty well, by all accounts. I'm realizing now that for those that are watching on YouTube, if I move my face around on the screen just to kind of switch up the look, now it covers the player's stats, so I'll try to tweak that a little bit. Oh, Yahoo, what is this weird new look we're getting here? Last year, 21 points, 5 boards, 3.5 assists for Brandon Miller. He was pretty good. A mess in field goal percent at just 40% on 18 shots per game. A team that would now, you assume, hope at least have LaMelo Ball back for the season. They brought in Colin Sexton, so there's one more usage guy there than there was last time around. Still, you got to believe that Brandon Miller is going to be the second dude on this team. They spent a very high draft pick on him, and they want to see what he can do. He was number 75 last year, largely because of one god-awful category, field goal percent. We just talked about it. He was a 3rd rounder if you were punting field goal. And so that's why you end up with him ranked at 52. He's kind of a split the difference type of dude, where if you're punting, yeah, absolutely, take him in the 5th round. I got no problem with that. He's likely to, I would think, come pretty close to replicating what he did last year. Maybe the field goal percent even gets a tiny bit better. I guess I don't know for sure, but if you're punting, you don't care that much anyway. And if you're not, then you hope it does get a little bit better. I don't think the usage changes all that much for Brandon Miller. LaMelo is going to be the lead horse there, and he made it farther into this last season than Miller did, so we didn't really get to see what Brandon would do when Ball was out. But, 60 range, something like that, a rank that fluctuates heavily based on how he's shooting in a given month is, I think, what you can expect. And this is generally a fine spot for Miller, if not necessarily my favorite target here. You're getting into a run of players that I'm not a massive fan of, but I think I'd go a little bit safer, which, like, you guys know me. if I'm going to take a shot, I'm going to take a shot on a guy with big time per game upside. And with Miller, the upside is he fixes his field goal percent because the usage I don't think is going to change all that much. So if you think the field goal percent jumps by 4 percentage points or whatever, yeah, I mean, he's inside the top 50. Absolutely. If he does everything he did last year but shoots 44% instead of 40, he's top 50 or better. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not willing to gamble on it being the case. Let's go to Michael Porter Jr. And I'll tell you what, if you trust the Brooklyn Nets, you're a saucier player than I. This is a team that appears to be well into a tank. They went 26-56 last year, kind of accidentally won about 15 more games than they intended to. And, they punted on Cam Johnson because they were able to get some stuff back for him. They got rid of, they brought in D'Lo in the middle of last year. That was the Dorian Finney-Smith trade. Now he's gone. And so, what is this team now? It's like Nick Claxton, Cam Thomas, Michael Porter Jr., and then a whole bunch of youth. And they got a bunch of youth, heavy on draft picks. I think, they have 4 first-rounders, something crazy like that. They got a lot of draft picks on the Nets, and they're going to be seeing what it's all like. So in the interim, if you're thinking, okay, well, like, what does MPJ do here in Brooklyn? Oh, surely he's going to get sort of unleashed in a way that he wasn't in Denver. Here's the thing. Michael Porter Jr. got 14 shots a game in Denver last year. If you're thinking, like, what did Cam Johnson get in Brooklyn? 13 shots a game. And that was with Cam Thomas out for basically the entire season. So, yeah, they unloaded stuff, but the main usage guy on Brooklyn missed last year because of health. I don't know that Michael Porter Jr. is going to do much more than he did in Denver. I'm sure he's happy. He spread his wings or whatever. His shot profile is going to look worse because Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray aren't there to get him wide open all the time. Brooklyn doesn't have anything like that. I think he's going to get rest days. I think he's going to get benched for lack of interest in the basketball game at times. I think it's going to be a clunky season for Michael Porter Jr. And there may be stretches where he gets 15, 16 shots a game where he's like, you know what, screw this. This is my team now. And those are going to be really fun ones because he does have upside in that he's a high field goal percent guy who can rebound, hit 3 balls, doesn't shoot the free throw that great, and doesn't get defensive stats, so that caps him out a little bit. But I get it. Like, I get the draft pick in the 50s spot. That's probably what he's going to do if his increase, the usage goes up in any small amount. But I'm also petrified of Brooklyn for so many reasons, game cap or otherwise. Like, they might just shut him down in November for a month. Why? Because, accidentally winning games is not conducive to the tank. The next guy on our list is also on a tanking team. I have the same issues. So you may notice in listening to these shows or watching these shows or however you're taking in the content that I'm talking more about guys to avoid than I have in seasons past. You'd be correct. It was long my position that tank stuff was being over accounted for in the fantasy space. I no longer feel that way after seeing what Brooklyn and Utah did, in particular, this past season. You've heard me on the podcast talk about the pre-tank. There were some teams that shut a key guy down in November, December, and then kind of let him go the rest of the way. Brooklyn played their guys the first month and a half, and they were accidentally too decent. And so then they just started playing everyone 24 minutes a game. And that was the worst kind of tank, if not for the fact that Utah was just like, you know what? We're going to give our guy who's 23 a bunch of rest days. We're going to give our veterans just a month off whenever we feel like it. We're not going to let John Collins clear half the games this year. And so instead of the old-fashioned tank, which was like, oh, I'm a bad team, I'm going to bench my guys the last 3 or 4 weeks of the year, now you get this sort of modern tank, which is guys rest all the time throughout the season. They skip all the back-to-backs. They take 3 weeks off in December because, their body just feels like they need 3 weeks off and the team doesn't want to win. and they missed the last 4 weeks of the regular season. So now all of a sudden, instead of a guy playing 68 games in a tank year or 65, now it's 50-something. That's not to say that I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to play 50-something games, but I would not be even the tiniest bit surprised if he played 50-something games. Good day, sir. Here's Walker Kessler, the next one on the board. And we just did a Utah. I feel like I just did a Utah show, but it's actually been a little bit of a stretch. I was big into Walker Kessler last year because I thought that he'd be, I don't want to say immune to the tank stuff, but young enough that it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Because the dude just turned 24. He's young. Why does a 23-year-old need all those rest days? Well, they gave it to him, which is a damn shame because he was having a pretty damn nice per-game fantasy season, hovering kind of in that top 40 range with 2.5 blocks, 12 rebounds, really good field goal percent. Yeah, he can replicate that. That was 30 minutes a game. I see no reason why he wouldn't, but I also see no reason why the 58 ball games won't happen again. Utah, if anything, is worse this year. By the way, Utah's regular season win total, we talked about this just the other day, 18.5. Really, really, really low. And money's still coming in on the under. There's certain teams where you're like, yeah, I mean, I don't like, how low is too low? I don't know that there's any number that's too low for this Jazz team. Although the difference, of course, is that this last year, everybody wanted Cooper Flagg. And, I don't know enough about the incoming draft class to tell you how hard the tank is going to be. But certainly on Wemby years and Flagg years, the tank is going to be harder than non-years. So maybe these guys get to play a little bit more. Maybe they win 20 games, just barely eking over their FanDuel regular season win total. Shout out FanDuel, partner here on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball and the Believe Network. But even then, what does that get him to? 65 games instead of 58? I'm afraid. And there are other options here where you don't have to go into it afraid. So as much as I love Walker Kessler, and I do think he has top 40 per game potential, I'm trying not to take guys that are headed into a tank. Especially when you've got this guy on the board right behind him in Jarrett Allen, who I actually think the Cavaliers have a shot to all be a little bit better from a fantasy standpoint this year, because I think they'll play slightly more competitive ball games. I don't know if that's going to be because Darius Garland misses the first few weeks. Max Strus, by the way, just had surgery. I mean, this is still a good basketball team, but the thing I keep pointing at, and again, I'm not insisting that it's going to get better, but I am kind of insisting that I don't think it's going to get worse. And the thing I'm talking about is the minute per game total for the key Cavaliers guys. There was a comment either on Twitter or on YouTube that Evan Mobley might play more center. Yeah, he might. But at the same time, Jarrett Allen only played 28 minutes a game last year and was number 53. Do we really think it's going to go lower than 28? I very much do not. Part of the Cavaliers' identity was having the presences around the rim that they did, and just that free-flowing style. Jarrett Allen was great, and he played in all 82 games this last year. If you give me a repeat Jarrett Allen season, I'll be satisfied, beyond satisfied. He was number 14 by totals. That crap matters. You get Jarrett Allen in the 5th round, and you end up with a second-round totals value. That's just being able to rely on that. 3-game week, 4-game week, whatever it is. You can just plug him in there. He was great. I wish he blocked a few more shots. 0.9 blocks a game, not my favorite. Not my favorite. But, that's just not really who he is. Still, it could go up to 1.1 or something that he's done in the past. He's done in the low to mid ones in 28 minutes a game. Not as reliably since his move to Cleveland, but 1.1, 1.2 were the last couple of seasons when the minutes were higher. So I think the minute downtick for Jarrett Allen has already happened. If the Cavaliers play slightly more competitive games, maybe that inches up to 29 and a half, something like that. I don't expect him to get to 31 or 32. That to me is asking too much, but throw one more minute on it. That stuff matters. Throw one more minute on Jarrett Allen. That's an extra. What are we saying here? He played 28 minutes a game and he got about 10 rebounds. third, half a rebound-ish, somewhere in that neck of the woods. 10.1 rebounds instead of 9.7. That matters. 1 block instead of 0.9 matters. It matters for rank. But I don't even care that much about the rank because we know exactly what Jarrett Allen is. It's why the corridor of centers we've named from 35 to 65, we've named it after Jarrett because he's going to get drafted in here and he's going to just reliably be fine the whole way through. I like fine. Fine is good, especially if you've taken your risk already. Miles Bridges. This is a little too high for Miles Bridges. It's a little too high. Not that I think he's gonna have a bad fantasy season, but he was number 68 last year, and LaMelo Ball missed 35 games, and Brandon Miller missed 50 games. And Colin Sexton is in town, and draft picks and et cetera, et cetera. Like last year's draft pick, also Tijan Salon. There are a lot of ways that Miles Bridges does less this coming season. I guess the hope would be a corresponding bounce in field goal percent because it was very bad this last year. And it wasn't because his shot profile was too terribly different. He just, shot the ball poorly. If you take usage away, could you get 2021 iteration Bridges where he shot 49% from the field on only 15 shots instead of 43% on 17? He was technically, by all accounts, he was a better fantasy player that year because of the improved efficiency. I doubt it. I think you probably see the drop off, and I don't think the 49-50% comes back. But maybe I'm wrong. Now, if it does, that's how he clears that hurdle because he was a top 35 player that year on the more efficient numbers. I don't think we can bank on it. I think if you're looking at Miles Bridges and you're saying, okay, well, usage goes down. Typically when usage goes down, value goes down. So I don't like Miles Bridges here. I think this is too early for him. I thought he'd go in the 75 range where I would have been a little bit more open to the idea. But in the mid to late 50s, I don't see him getting better from a fantasy standpoint. Not when, usage has basically been maxed out for Miles the last couple of seasons. That was a relatively short one. Made my point. We move on. Here's Darius Garland, who is likely to start this season on the what do we call it? The injured list. I don't know. Darius was awesome last year, by the way. I don't want to take anything away from him, but you guys know where I stand on drafting players that are hurt to start the year. Garland was number 45 last year, 20.5 points, almost 3 threes, 6.7 assists, 1.2 steals, 47-88 were the splits. All of that was great. And all of that suggests that another good year should have been coming, but injury. He had surgery on his toe. We don't know exactly how far into the season he'll get going, but then he'll kind of need a preseason training camp to get up to speed after that. So I would say in your mind, probably budget for a month where you're not getting the best iteration of Darius Garland. And if it's a little better than that, great. If it's a little bit worse, at least you were sort of ready for it. Unless something changes, again, today's August 27th, so a lot can change between now and the start of the year. We're still almost 2 months away from the start of the season, minus a couple of days. Right now, from the information we have, I'm not drafting Garland. I'm just not. My issue is, and maybe he comes back and he's incredibly healthy the rest of the way, which he was this year. He played 75 out of 82 games. That was great. Big time bounce back year for him after a down health season that kind of took his fantasy game with it. He's another guy where the minutes could have been higher if the Cavs played more competitive games. So there's all these ways you could look at Garland and say, yeah, here's ways that we could squeeze out a little bit more fantasy value. But if you in your mind are budgeting for him to miss the first 4 weeks of the year, which is where I'm at right now, and again, subject to change, that means his max games played is about 67. Max. If he comes back and plays every game the rest of the way, at a top 45 clip like last year. That doesn't get you into the 50s by totals. That gets you into like the 70s and 80s by totals. And I get it on the head-to-head side. If you can weather the storm and you draft a guy in the late 50s and he's a 40s ranked guy the rest of the way, like, great. Then you get a guy who covers you. I'm not doing it. It works like 10 to 15% of the time. Drafting a guy who's hurt. They come back a little bit early and they're good the rest of the year. JJJ's done it seemingly a couple of times now, but it's not the norm. Most guys that start the season hurt, it ends up costing them other injuries. They try to come back. They don't have their full preseason. Something else gets hurt. They don't play that many games, even if they do look good. It's almost always messy. Just trust me on that. We've done shows on it. It works sometimes, and you feel so brilliant when it does, but it doesn't work enough where you should roll the dice, especially not at a 5th round pick, especially not when there's these other guys around him now, like Jaylen Duren, who I get it. Jaylen Duren, not a starting point guard in the NBA. Finding the Darius Garland stat set at this juncture is complicated, although the next guy on the list that we're going to talk about, you already know, because I told you who 51 through 60 was. I'd make a much stronger argument for him. But Jaylen Duren was very bad to start last year and pretty damn good to finish it. This is a perfect spot for him to get drafted. He was top 60 the final 30 games last year. He was top 50. He had a stretch like right before that where he made his free throws a tiny bit better and he was inside the top 50. Jaylen Duren's fantasy value most likely hinges on his free throw percent this coming year. He shot 67% this season. He shot 79% his sophomore year. He shot 61% his first year in the NBA. What the crap? I honestly don't know. Like, I'd love to say that I know everything. I don't. We're doing our best to try to game this thing out. He was a 63% free throw shooter in college. It feels like the 79% was an anomaly, but I don't know. The minutes for Duren should have been better. He got yanked around quite a bit, defensive lapses, things like that. They had a solid backup in Isaiah Stewart. They still do. So I don't think that you can just assume that Duren's going to play 30 minutes instead of 27. But obviously, if it happens, that's also neat. I would expect a double-double. I would expect it. This is a guy who, if he can figure out the defensive side consistently, could challenge for the rebounding title year over year. Like, he was up near 12 rebounds in only 29 minutes a game, not this season, but the last one. He was over 10 minutes in 26 minutes a game this year. You give this dude 30 minutes, he's 12 rebounds a night. Beast. I think you could assume something like 14 points and 11 rebounds for Duren or something near there. Hopefully a block. Hopefully he can get himself to a block. Hopefully he can get himself to 0.6, 0.7 steals. Hopefully he can shoot 69% at the free throw line instead of 63. That's how he's a top 50 guy instead of top 60 where you're getting him. He is very much a back end of the Jarrett Allen corridor type of center, and that's exactly where he's going. In fact, he is Jarrett Allen with slightly better rebounding and slightly worse free throw percent. Have at it, man. Coin flip that bad boy. Both totally fine in this range because that is where Jarrett Allen corridor guys should go. Now, we were talking about if you are having trouble, if I'm having issues talking you off Darius Garland in this range because you just must find someone who can get you some scoring and assists, allow me to present to you Austineth Reaves, who was awesome post-Luka trade last year, really post-D'Angelo Russell trade, but even more so post-Luka trade. Here's the beauty part. Austin Reaves was ranked 39th on the season last year. And that already sounds damn good because he was someone that we did target in that 90 to 100 range last year because I thought he was going to be top 75. I didn't think he was going to be top 40. Either way, a win's a win, even if we undershot the winningness of him. He was even better than that post-Luka trade. Second half of the season, Austin Reaves was number 13. Final 2 months, he was number 27. If you're wondering why it actually got worse, honestly, I couldn't really tell you. No big reason. I mean, he was very good. The stats were almost the same, both of those. I think the assists may have been a little bit higher because Luka missed a couple of weeks after the trade, and then he came back, and Reaves was more like a second, third rounder. Austin was amazing. 48-90 were the percentages splits. He was at 22 points, 3 threes a game, 4.5 boards, 5 assists, and a steal. He even got half a block over that stretch. And he did it on only 2.5 turnovers a game, which actually, if that number felt higher, by the way, if you watched Laker games, because it felt like anytime the Lakers ran into a team that had sort of a ball hawker, they'd put him on Reaves and he'd cough it up 6 times. If he continues to work on his handle, which I'm assuming is going to be one of the big things for this offseason, everything else is where it needs to be. He's a high field goal percent shooting guard. He's also a great free throw shooter. He also hits threes at a decent enough clip, 38% last year. And he was up near 6 assists on a team where, yeah, Luka's going to be the guy, and LeBron is going to be the guy also. But LeBron, and I'm not fading him, I've learned that lesson 1,000 times, he is getting older. So more for Austin, and just like incredible efficiency to get out of a guy that's going to give you 5 to 6 assists per ball game. It's basically the Zach LaVine fantasy stat set plus. I would say, actually, this is a fun little exercise. Compare Austin Reaves' numbers from last year to Zach LaVine. Reaves was at 20, 4.5 and 6, 1.1 steals, 46, 88 splits, 2.73. Zach LaVine was at 23, 4 and 4 with 0.8 steals, 51, 83 splits, 3 threes. So Reaves won the assist battle and the steals battle. LaVine won the scoring battle and the field goal percent battle. Austin won free throw. But these are like elite shooting guard stat sets, but Reaves has the edge because of the assists, because he's going to run stuff. It also doesn't hurt that he's into the high 80s in free throws now. I love Austin Reaves in this stretch. In the mock draft we did yesterday, he went significantly earlier than late 50s. And like when you're debating between an injured Darius Garland, Miles Bridges, like this is crazy. Even the guys I like in this range, like Allen and Duren, and who the hell was the first? And Jimmy Butler, who has the injury risk. Like, I have no idea why Austin Reaves isn't ahead of basically everyone in this chunk. I think he'll be going in the 4th round when Yahoo releases their next board. But if you're drafting now, you can get him in the 5th, and that's all right. Speaking of guys that average about 22 points on efficiency, Demar DeRozan is number 60, but I'm less excited about DeMar because where Austin Reaves is not ancient. Austin is, 27 years old? I mean, he's in his prime. DeMar is a decade older. Almost exactly. 9 years older than Austin Reaves. DeMar DeRozan was born in 89. Austin was born in 98. Now, look, DeMar DeRozan was still decent enough last year. 22, 4 and 4.5, 48, 86 splits. That's actually really close to what Austin did. Doesn't hit 3-pointers, and the steals for DeRozan, which were never like outstanding, but they've very much tapered off this past year. It was only at 0.8 in his Sacramento season after he was at 1.1 in Chicago. Still got plenty of usage. So for DeMar, you're sort of grading out the assists and the steals. And so now the key with DeRozan is, what did he do after the Kings turned themselves into Bulls West? Well, the answer was, He was number 91. The assists actually went up for DeMar, and I don't think that's an accident because De'Aaron Fox was gone, so the point guard left, and then it became a whole bunch of wings running the offense / centers. They'll run it through Domantas Sabonis. The Kings now brought in Dennis Schroeder. So Schroeder replaces either Malik Monk or Keon Ellis in the starting 5, depending on what game you were looking at for Kings box scores from last year. he will be more the initiator. He's not going to do De'Aaron Fox level stuff, but Monk, who averaged 5 assists, when he was out there with the starting unit, he was a little bit more point guardy than certainly Keon Ellis was. So more Keon meant more point DeRozan. However, it's also worth pointing out that even if you adjust the assists for DeMar back down into the 4s instead of the 5s, he also averaged only 0.8 combined defensive stats in the post-trade deadline, which, as much as you might think the steals are going down for DeMar, 0.4 was not a sustainably low, like that would come up. So I think DeMar probably profiles as like a 70-something range fantasy guy. Taking him at 60 is not the worst idea on earth. Even as he's gotten older, he has continued to be one of the most durable players. Frankly, in this like generation of NBA players, he might be the most durable. Like you go back, there's a strike season in there and some COVID seasons, but he never misses basketball games. Even in the COVID years, he missed 4 and 11. That's amazing. Since then, 6, 8, 3, and 5. A lot of single-digit missed games for DeMar. He's going to be really high up on the all-time scoring board because he just plays. What's his total points at now? DeMar's at 25,292. That's pretty impressive. I kind of want to look that up on the show. NBA all-time scoring leaderboard. Where does that put him? Playoffs. I don't want playoffs. Give me NBA history. ESPN, can you do this? DeMar's 25th. He's 25th all-time in scoring. Steph is right ahead of him. He's still playing. DeMar will most likely pass Alex English, Vince Carter. I mean, this is actually pretty impressive stuff. I'm kind of glad we did this deep dive. How many points did DeMar score this last year? 1,710. I don't know that he's going to get quite that high again, but you got to assume he's going to be up and over 1,000. Maybe like around 1,500, something in that neck of the woods. That would put him at 26,700 something. I mean, that puts him in like 17th, 18th place all time. That's amazing. And not to say that DeMar hasn't been good, but like durability is why he's there. So there we go again with the same general story. DeMar DeRozan was ranked 70th per game last year, but played in 77 games. And so by totals, he was number 40. So you take him at 60. Is he a per game, like Roto Games Cap fun type of player? No, not really. Frankly, is he fun in any way? Probably no. But head-to-head, if you take a guy at the end of the 5th round, beginning of the 6th round, I bet he falls, by the way, in drafts. If I had to guess where DeMar goes when Yahoo does their next board, I bet he's 5-6 slots later. If you can get him in the 6th round, and even if he takes a small hit again, like if he beats that mark by totals on the head-to-head side, that's useful. We're not in that part of the board yet where you want to be taking big home run, like closed, blindfolded home run hacks. We're not there yet. You can take a risk in the first 5 or 6 rounds, but it has to be sort of mitigated with guys like DeMar. And that's kind of the story of this section of the board as we pivot back to this, taking a look at all 10 names that we talked about on today's show. That's the board. You've got like 3 guys that are hyper durable, well, like lower upside plays. DeMar, Jaylen Duren, Jarrett Allen. Those are your 3, we think. Well, I mean, we'll see if Duren, he was durable last year, but hadn't been before that. You've got tanking, possible tank issues in 2 Hornets, a Net, and a Jazz. So 4 guys, I don't want to say off the board, but inching that way. That gets us to, what, 7 out of 10 players? Then you've got the upside injury risk in Jimmy Butler, the upside already injured risk in Darius Garland, and the guy who kind of checks all the boxes, which is Austin Reaves, who has upside and durable and on a team trying to win. So if you're looking at this list of 10, Austin Reaves far and away my favorite player in this group. Then you go to the safe guys with Jimmy Butler kind of right behind. That's like 2A and 2B tiers. So Jarrett Allen, Jaylen Duren, DeMar probably in that next group. And then I don't know what the hell you do after that. I don't want Michael Porter Jr. I don't want Walker Kessler. We've seen what these teams did last year. Charlotte, at least maybe they I'm not convinced Charlotte is going to try to tank. I think they're just going to be kind of bad. But the Eastern Conference is terrible. So, Charlotte, interestingly enough, not that we need to do another look-see over at our buddies at FanDuel, their season win total is 27.5. So Vegas believes they're going to be trying to win games this year as well. Those guys are a little bit more safe. Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, because the odds makers believe the Hornets are going to try this year, and trying is at least like 80% of the battle for these bad players or decent players on bad teams kind of stuff. So I guess you put the Hornets next, and then you put the true tanks at the bottom of my board for this 10 players. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to subscribe on your way out. That's the biggest thing you can do. Hit the like button as well. A bunch of likes right out of the chute really does help the YouTube algorithm as we work to continue to grow the Old Man Squad Network. I'm Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris on Twitter, and I'll see you guys probably tomorrow. I'm guessing this is a one-show day for yours truly, but you never do know. Adios!